as we begin in Minneapolis with the ongoing fallout from the fatal shooting of 37-year-old ICU nurse Alex Preddy. My colleagues here at MS Now and I have obtained the first official timeline of this incident, which undercuts some of the statements made by Trump administration officials in the immediate aftermath of the killing. This is a preliminary review from U.S. Customs and Border Protection, and it makes no mention of Preddy brandishing a weapon or intending to do maximum damage and kill law enforcement. That's notable because that's what Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem and other officials claimed. This report, which was sent to lawmakers on the Hill yesterday afternoon, also revealed that 2 federal agents filed at Preddy after he resisted arrest, they say. Questions remain about what exactly led agents to fire those fatal shots. And then when it comes to the investigation, sources tell MS Now that the Justice Department has decided there will be no civil rights probe into the shooting. Instead, a Customs and Border Protection office will investigate their own officers. And another DHS unit, which normally focuses on human trafficking and national security threats, will look into whether Preddy broke any laws. Minnesota's Bureau of Criminal Apprehension says it's separately investigating this shooting, but has not been given access to any evidence or information from federal agencies. Makes doing an investigation really hard. Want to bring in now live from the ground in Minneapolis, MS Now reporter Jillian Frankel. Jillian, you've been following this closely. I know you're talking to people on the ground. What is the reaction you're hearing to the Department of Justice not opening a criminal rights probe into this shooting? And what does that mean then for the investigation moving forward? Because we know that Minnesota and their local officials are trying to do their own investigations there. But again, access to information or a lack of it makes it really hard.
That's exactly right, Allie. I cannot stress enough how unusually this entire investigation is being handled here. We know no civil rights probe in this instance. There also wasn't one in the shooting death of Renee Good. And just to back up a little more broadly here, the way that this would typically unfold, we would see the FBI investigate this incident in conjunction with state officials, which, as you mentioned here, is the BCA in Minnesota, the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. They are still trying to do this investigation, but it's now being led federally by the Department of Homeland Security, and more specifically, the unit is HSI, Homeland Security Investigations, which hasn't turned over any evidence over to the BCA. They are still trying to pursue this. They've been on the ground where Alex Preddy was shot and killed on the streets here in Minneapolis, but they're moving forward without any of that federal help here. And as I've spoken with the Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty before this shooting took place, but after the shooting of Renee Good, she said what Minnesotans really want is transparency in investigations like this. Allie?
Well, we are getting a sense of some transparency because yesterday we were able to obtain the first most extensive, I would say, remarks from CBP about what happened in this incident. And there are some really clear contradictions in here. Everything from at what point was the gun actually seen that was supposedly with Preddy? At what point was it recovered? What caused agents to fire those shots in the first place? All of those are really sticky details, but also very much contradictory in this CBP report that we obtained yesterday from what we heard initially from top DHS officials, right? So can we square any of those circles at this point?
That's tough, Allie. Yeah, as you mentioned, and I should just back up here. The Department of Homeland Security came out immediately after this shooting over the weekend, way before an investigation could thoroughly take place, claiming that he had brandished this weapon, that he showed up that day to cause harm to law enforcement. That now is contradicting the video evidence that we've seen from multiple angles at the scene of this incident. And yeah, in this minute-by-minute timeline that you were able to obtain, it didn't appear that he was brandishing this weapon. What's not exactly clear is at what point these agents were able to remove the weapon here. But the trust in federal officials, in law enforcement to be able to conduct an investigation like this is already so tenuous here on the ground in Minneapolis. So these details and when these federal officials come out and make these claims is really critical here.
Yeah, it's really critical. I'm always a fan of when we see government agencies writing something down. It's a lot harder to change something that is actually in print. But at the same time, this is an instance where we can see what happened with our own eyes. And we've seen it for days now, despite the narratives that this administration has tried to put out. MS Now reporter Jillian Frankel live with us from Minneapolis. Thank you for coming on. And President Trump spoke to Fox News yesterday about sending border czar Tom Homan now to Minnesota, as well as the deaths of Alex Preddy and Renee Good. He also talked about his call with Governor Tim Walz. Watch.
Well, I think the whole thing is terrible. I don't like the fact that he was carrying a gun that was fully loaded and he had 2 magazines with him, and it's pretty unusual. But nobody knows when they saw the gun, how they saw the gun, everything else. Bottom line, it was terrible. Both of them were terrible. The other was terrible, too. And I'm not sure about his parents, but I know her parents were big Trump fans. Makes me feel bad anyway. But, I mean, I guess you could say even worse. They were tremendous Trump people, Trump fans. And, you know, the daughter was, she was, I don't know if you could say radicalized, maybe not. I don't know. But I hate to see it. I hate to see that.
The message is out that Tom Homan is in.
Yeah.
Commander Bovino is supposedly leaving Minneapolis along with some CBP agents. Is this a pullback?
I don't think it's a pullback. It's a little bit of a change. Everybody in this room that has a business, you know, you make little changes. You know, Bovino is very good, but he's a pretty out there kind of a guy. And in some cases, that's good. Maybe it wasn't good here. But you have to understand, when I watch some of the people that I've been watching over the last few weeks, these are paid insurrectionists. These are paid agitators. These people aren't normal, like, oh, gee, that, you know, they're incensed about anything. How do you get incensed when you go into a state and you're taking criminals out? You're taking monsters out, murderers. It couldn't have been a nicer conversation. And in fact, I said to my people, I said, it's hard to believe that's the same guy I watch on television, or I watch in a debate not doing so well, or because we had a very reasonable conversation, very good conversation. If you believe the conversation, he'd like to get this thing over with.
There's so much to begin to pick apart from that interview, from a Republican president saying that he doesn't like that someone was carrying a gun in a concealed carry state with a permit. That's got people who are Second Amendment proponents confused, outraged. Might be why some Republicans are speaking negatively about this moment. Also, the use of the word insurrectionist from a president who immediately pardoned January 6th insurrectionists on his first day in office. We're going to dig into more of it. But it all comes as a growing number of Democrats and Republicans are now calling on Kristi Noem to resign as head of Homeland Security. Senators Lisa Murkowski of Alaska and Thom Tillis of North Carolina are the first Republican members of Congress to publicly call on Noem to step down. Tillis notably is not seeking another term. He said Noem's actions reflected, quote, amateurish assistant manager sort of thought processes, and called her actions, quote, unacceptable for someone in a cabinet level position. Watch.
I think that what she's done in Minnesota should be disqualifying. She should be out of the job.
So as of this morning, President Trump is standing by Noem, continuing to defend her, including during an interview with Fox News last night.
Do you still have confidence in DHS Secretary Kristi Noem? You brought up the success at the border.
Look,
you do.
She was there with the border. Who closed up the border? She did, with Tom Homan, with the whole group. I mean, they closed up the border. The border is a tremendous success, one of the most secure borders in the entire world.
Want to bring in Playbook reporter at Politico, Ali Bianco. My fellow Ali, there's so much for us to dig into here. I mean, again, the Second Amendment concerns, it does sort of feel when you listen to some Republicans in this administration and their initial reaction here, like up is down. I mean, reading some of the statements from the NRA and other gun groups, it's been a really interesting dynamic. But even just putting that aside, what does it look like inside the White House right now? What are your sources telling you about a potential changing of the guard? Is that a step back, or is it just a changing of who's on the ground in Minnesota and they're putting Tom Homan in because at least he has a background and decades of history within this organization?
Well, there's really two messages that we're hearing right now. I think what my colleagues are reporting and you know, the people in the White House that they're speaking to are standing by Noem. I mean, we saw it with Trump on this clip. We're seeing it from some of the top officials coming out of the White House who publicly are saying, you know, Noem is staying where she is. This is not an indictment on her, you know, role and leading the Department of Homeland Security. They're being very clear that they believe that this is not something that's going to be sort of a mark on her character or her ability to lead. But privately, what a lot of people close to the White House are telling my colleagues is that, you know, the actions of, you know, sending Tom Homan into Minnesota maybe speak louder than the words of, you know, saying that Noem is still very much in her same power.
Yeah.
I think this also comes, as my colleagues have reported, that Noem has been on thin ice for a while.
Yes.
There's been some ongoing concerns about her leadership, everything from the handling of FEMA during disaster response to, some of the more flashy moments that she's had that have definitely drawn a little bit of raised eyebrows from, the GOP caucus in terms of what she's doing on immigration.
I mean, me and my colleagues reported at the end of the year that there was a widespread belief inside of DHS that she was going to be out in January at some point, as early as the first of the year. Obviously, that's not where we are right now, but you're 100% right to point out that internally in the White House, she's been skating on thin ice. I will say now, when you add in the rebukes from Republicans on the Hill, this is as far as they've gone. And yesterday on Morning Joe, I was kind of skeptical about when they were calling for an investigation. That meant the bar was on the floor, because obviously we should be investigating these things. But does it matter that people like Thom Tillis and Lisa Murkowski are coming out and saying she needs to step down at the same time as House Democrats are saying she needs to be fired and step down, or we'll impeach her or try, because they don't have the numbers?
It's going to create an interesting dynamic for the White House, because what we're seeing in the reports is if Trump removes Noem right now, then that's him saying, oh, we're admitting that this was a problem. All of the reporting bears out that Trump is not going to do that. He's not going to immediately do something that is going to give Democrats a win or something to kind of hang on to from this entire crisis. Instead, what's going on is we see the Trump administration, ramping up Tom Homan, ramping up their border czar. We saw him in the clip, echoing a lot of what Republicans are saying right now, which is like, you can't look at this in a vacuum. You have to look at the border. You have to look at law enforcement. You have to look at, historic low levels of border crossings. They're trying to put all of this in a bigger context. But what we're concretely seeing on the ground is, Trump coming after Bovino, who is one of the main chiefs at Border Patrol.
Correct.
And we're seeing Homan being the liaison with Governor Tim Walz and with Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey.
Yeah, and if you want to do the Trump worldology on this, too, Homan is at cross purposes with people like Noem and Lewandowski, reportedly, who are more allied with Bovino. And so, again, if you're watching Rising and Falling Fortunes in Trump world, which is typically how people keep their jobs, that's also pretty important to the way that this might move forward.